Before we get into the agenda, Dave, you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a public forum concerning BYOD sometime before we vote on
Sometime before what?
it. We vote on it. If I can get a second, I'll speak to it.
Excuse me a second.
I just think that it's important for us to invite the public in and to hear all the views about the program before we go ahead and take such a big step. That's pretty much it.
Is there
Any other discussion?
any kind of like format?
I didn't want to take a lot of time tonight. I wanted to ensure that we would be able to have one, and then maybe next Tuesday we can decide when, or between now and then, or how, or so forth.
I can say I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'd like to, maybe wait until then and hear more about it. But, again, I'm all for format. It's one thing saying you're going to have a forum, but it's another to have it set up and run smoothly. So again, I'd like to wait and hear what the overall plan is before I decide one way or the other.
Well, my concern is that the calendar's running out very quickly. And my thought was if we agreed to have one, then maybe we could send out the meeting wizard, we could try to find a date, and then by next Tuesday, maybe we could actually set that date, because soon school will be over. And I think if we are trying to invite the public into July, it's going to be tough to get anybody to show up. So my thought was maybe by getting it started now, we could finalize it on Tuesday. I'm open to the format. I didn't prepare a format because I don't have a particular preference.
Just if I could, Carol, there's a motion on the floor for a public forum, to have a public forum for BYOD. And we're in the discussion phases of that motion right now.
And it was before we vote on it, was there, like you said, I missed, did you say to have one before we vote on it as a board?
Yes, I wasn't picking a specific date or
Right,
anything,
right,
just
before,
before
yeah,
we would
yeah.
bring it to a vote.
Did we ever specify when we had to vote? I mean, do we have any kind of deadline? What is there a deadline?
I think the game plan is June 19th.
To make a determination on where
Yes.
we're going with
Yes.
BYOD by the 19th?
And I'm wondering if before, well, either tonight or at our meeting on the 5th, that we can talk about the 19th, because we're supposed to be at the head school. And the boards going to have to consider that as a facility in conducting business. And secondly, the superintendent can't do that. So,
Okay.
Can't be where, at the 19th? or
Yeah.
something?
yeah. What happens, Mike, is at the end of the year, the 8th grade graduations, we don't know when they're going to be because we don't know what snow days are. And then they're scheduled at the end of the year. And I always have a conflict with Sunday. And boards generally, like the superintendent, at their graduations, that's Candy's graduation. And boards generally make accommodations for each other, so I can get to the graduation and get to the board meetings.
And it's my understanding too that we don't really have any deadline that we have to vote it on the 19th. It's just that that's when we're supposed to have the report and,
We don't have a report to you. I think our goal is, I think what we said to you is we have it to you, I can carry it to your meeting on the 5th. That's our plan.
right. So I guess what I should have said is we'll have time to have considered it by the 19th, but there isn't any real deadline that we have to vote that night. I'm flexible. I just would like to get on the record that we are going to have a public forum at some time before we vote. That's really all I'm asking in the motion, and, you know, we can work out the details. Well, we can work out the details now. I didn't want to hold up the meeting with that.
I have a question for the superintendent. We're expected to have the report. Does the report include the results of the surveys that went to families that participated in it, or are those survey results coming at a separate time?
No, the surveys are back. And I believe we sent surveys to all parents, whether they.
Second, fifth, and sixth grade.
Second, whether they participated or not. Yeah,
Okay.
so those will be part of, an analysis of those will be part of the report.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of having the public forum on BYOD at a, I guess a date and time to be determined, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry. Do you oppose?
I'd like to abstain, because I wasn't included enough in the discussions. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I'm not opposed to it, so it's 3-1-1. So we'll see where we end up.
I have one other quick motion, Dana. I'd like to make a motion that we have a public forum before we would take any vote to change the high school reassignment policy. We don't know that we're going to, so obviously my idea was if we are planning to do that, that we would have a forum before we would vote. If we don't, if there's no vote to be taken, then there would be no forum.
A second.
Discussion?
Just see that it can be part of the conversation as moving forward, but to be held down right now saying yes or no, I'm a little uncomfortable about, but I'd be open to it as we discuss the high school reassignment of coordinating a forum, if that's the pleasure of the board at that time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one's a little too far in advance for me, but
Well, I think that we should be deciding this before the end of school this year, so the parents have a good idea of what's going to happen next year. I think if we need to have some meetings, and I think if we look back to what happened last year, one of the major criticisms was that there was no public forum, there was no way to discuss this before it happened. I know there were public meetings, but there was not a forum called. I feel that if we call the forum, people have a chance to come out, speak their mind, and be heard. And I think on big issues like high school reassignment, if we're going to even change it a little bit, it's going to be a big issue, particularly this year. I don't think that we're binding ourselves when we say that we're going to allow the public in to share their views with us when we represent the public. I think if we're binding ourselves, that's a good thing, because we're making a commitment that we are going to hear what the public has to say, and it prevents a quick vote from happening when they have not had a chance to come forward and share their views.
any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving public forum prior to, say, revising the high school reassignment policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm opposed. All right, that's 2-3.
What is it?
2-3. Okay,